Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. I'm Hasham. In this video, I'm continuing the problems on trial balance. Last video, I have completed 4 problems on trial balance, and from 5th problem onwards, I'm continuing in this video. So before this, already I have uploaded the video on theory of trial balance. I have explained you the meaning of the term trial balance, the objectives of making the trial balance, advantages, limitations, and the points to be noted while preparing the trial balance. All these things I have explained in the first video. So if you have not watched that video, I suggest you to go to the playlist of my channel. Select the subject accounting. Watch the first video on trial balance. Be clear about the concept, meaning of trial balance. Then only you can watch this video and understand it. So before starting the video, I expect my viewers to have a printout of the problems which I have given in the link under my description. So go to the description, last line you will find the link, take a printout and keep it ready before start watching this problem. Otherwise you cannot be able to understand the problem itself. So always keep in hand a hard copy of the problems which I have given in the link. So before explanation of this problem, take a screenshot of the solutions of problem number 5, 6, 7, 8. It is on the board. Then after taking the screenshot, make a note of it. I'll explain the problem. Come on, see the 5th problem. Problem number 5, I'm explaining. Kellow provided the following balances at 30th November 2017. Prepare a trial balance at 30th November 2017. So trial balance items are given: account, dollars, debit and credit. In the problem itself, column is provided for debit and credit. You have to decide which item will be taken in debit column and which item will go to credit column. For this purpose, already in the theory video, I have explained you what are the rules regarding preparation of trial balance. First, all assets, expenses and drawings. All assets, expenses and losses are debited. All liabilities, incomes and gains are credited. Capital or equity always will show credit balance. Drawings will show debit balance. Then sales revenue will show credit balance. Sales return will show debit balance. Purchases will show debit balance. Purchase returns will show credit balance. Similarly, depreciation will show debit balance. Provision for depreciation, credit balance. Irrecoverable debt, debit balance. Allowance for irrecoverable debt, credit balance. Opening stock or opening inventory, debit balance. Generally, closing inventory will not be taken in the trial balance. And any accrued expenses, it's a liability, so credit balance. Any prepaid expenses or prepayments is an asset, it will show debit balance. So these are the points you have to keep in mind whenever you make the trial balance, right? Now, first item is given bank overdraft. Remember, bank overdraft is a liability, so it will show credit balance. All liabilities will show credit balance. So bank overdraft, credit column 650. First item over. Second, drawings. Just now I told drawings will show debit balance. So take the drawings, 24,200 debit balance. Then third one, equity. Equity is the capital, always credit balance. So equity credit side 9,160. Next comes general expenses, debit balance. All expenses will show debit balance. So general expenses, debit side 9,150. Loan is a liability. It will show credit balance. So loan credit side 6,000. Then loan interest. That means interest is paid on loan. It's an expense. Debit balance. So loan interest, debit balance 400. Next comes motor expenses. Name itself is given expenses, debit balance. So motor expenses, debit side 3,100. Motor vehicle cost. So motor vehicle cost is an asset, debit balance. So motor vehicle cost, debit balance. Then motor vehicle provision for depreciation. Just now I told you provision for depreciation shows credit balance. Provision for depreciation shows credit balance. So provision for depreciation, credit side. Next comes purchases, always debit. So purchase a debit side, 53,860. Then rent expense, it's an expense for debit balance. Next comes revenue. Revenue means sales revenue, credit balance, always. So revenue, credit side, 96,580. Next, trade payable ledger control account, trade receivable ledger control account. Trade payable is a liability, trade receivable is an asset. तो ट्रेड पेबल लायबिलिटी तो क्रेडिट साइड, ट्रेड पेबल क्रेडिट कॉलम. उसी तरह ट्रेड रिसीवेबल इज एन एसेट, इट विल शो डेबिट बैलेंस. ओवर all the items given in the problem we have taken in the respective columns, debit column or credit column. That is the only thing you have to remember. Now find the total of debit and total of credit. So in our problem the total of debit and credit both are equal. In other words, the trial balance is tallied. There are no errors. There is no arithmetic error in the posting of transactions. So 1,22,910. Here also 1,22,910. Both sides equal. That's it. This is the problem number 5. Now I am reading out problem number 6. Complete the trial balance at 31st December 2019. Any difference should be entered in suspense account. So specifically it is mentioned in the problem, if you find any difference in the trial balance, transfer it to suspense account. Now see carefully. Trial balance at 31st December 2019. First item, bank overdraft. It's a liability, credit side. So bank overdraft, liability, credit side, 770. Then carriage inward, it's an expense. Carriage inward or carriage outward, both are expenses. Both will show debit balance. So carriage inward, debit, 880. Next, discount allowed, it's a loss. Discount allowed is a loss. It will show debit balance. Discount allowed, 340. Drawings, it's a debit balance. So drawings, 4,500 debit. Equity, it's the capital. Always will show credit balance. So equity 9,090. General expenses, it is the expenses, so debit balance. Then inventory, nothing is given, so we assume it is opening inventory. It is opening inventory, so it will be taken. Inventory 12,260, debit column. Then irrecoverable debt, it's a loss. Irrecoverable debt is a loss. It will show debit balance. So irrecoverable debt, debit side, 700. Next comes motor expenses. It is expense, debit side. Motor vehicle cost, it is the asset, debit balance. Motor vehicle provision for depreciation, credit balance. Just like the previous problem. Provision for depreciation, credit balance. Purchases, debit balance, 48,000. Return outward. Return outward means purchase return. It will show credit balance. Purchases will be debited. Purchase return will be credited. So here purchases debit and return outward credit. Remember this point. Return outward means purchase return, credit balance. Then revenue, sales, credit balance. So revenue, credit side. Then trade payable and trade receivable. Trade payable is a liability, credit side. So trade payable, credit column. And trade receivable is an asset, debit balance. So trade receivable, debit side. Then suspense account. Specifically given in the problem, last item, suspense account. In the problem it is mentioned that if any difference arises in the trial balance, that difference is to be transferred to suspense account, specifically given in the problem. So we have written suspense account. We don't know how much suspense account amount we will get. So after taking all the items, now find the total. What you will see is, you will find debit side is more. Debit side is more. Take the total of the debit side, you are getting 1,04,040. 1,04,040. 1,40,040. This is the total of the debit side. If you take the total of the credit side, it is less. It is less than 1,04,040. So deduct and find out the difference. The difference between debit and credit column is 270. 270 is the difference between the total of debit column and the total of the credit column. That 270 will be taken on that side where the total is less. The total is less in credit column. The total is less in credit column. So credit column I am taking 270, suspense account balancing figure. Previous problem there was no suspense account. The total of debit and credit were same. But here the credit side is less. Debit side is more. So credit side 270 rupees is the suspense account balancing figure. That's it. So this is the end of problem number 6. Now I am reading out problem number 7. Complete the corrected trial balance. So in the problem already draft trial balance is given. But this draft trial balance is incorrect. Because some of the items of debit are taken in credit and credit items are taken in debit. That means a wrong trial balance is given, drafted trial balance is given. Now we have to correct it. We have to make the corrected trial balance. The corrected trial balance is given in the problem debit and credit. So we will remove the wrong amount and put it in the correct account. Example, the first item bank overdraft. We know bank overdraft is a liability, it will show credit balance. But in the draft account it is showing on debit side. In draft trial balance, it is taken bank overdraft 1830 debit side. It's a mistake. It is wrong. The correct is 1830 should be taken in the credit column because it's a bank overdraft liability. So here I have taken bank overdraft credit side 1830. Secondly, carriage inward. Carriage inward is an expense. It will show debit balance. But by mistake in this draft trial balance, it is taken in the credit column 710. 710 is taken on the credit side. Wrong. We have to take it on the debit side. So he carriage inward, debit side 710. Then third one is carriage outward. Carriage inward or carriage outward, both are expenses. Both should be debited. But here carriage outward is taken correctly. 1220 debit column. So here also 1220 debit column. Discount allowed is a loss. It should show debit balance. But by mistake it is taken on credit column. So this 420 we take it on the debit side. Discount received is an income. Discount received is an income. Credit column. So discount received 300 credit side. So I have taken 300 credit. Drawings always debit side. So here drawings are taken on credit column. Mistake. So take that 6200 on debit side. Equity. Equity means capital. Always credit balance. Here it is taken 16,600 credit column. General expenses are expenses, debit column 5,940. Inventory. Here inventory is given 5,350. Debit side. It is correct. Irrecoverable debt 250. Irrecoverable debt is a loss. It should be debited. But by mistake in the draft trial balance, it is taken on the credit side. Mistake. Wrong. We bring it to debit side. So irrecoverable debt, debit side 250. Next comes non-current assets accumulated depreciation. We call it as accumulated depreciation or we can call it as provision for depreciation. Both mean same. So accumulated depreciation credit column. So here 5,900 credit column. The next page it is given non-current assets cost. It's an asset debit side. Non-current asset cost 15,050 debit column. Then purchases debit 34,280. Rent and rates, it's an expense. So debit rent and rates 3,650. Return inward. Return inward means sales return. Return inward means sales return. It will show debit balance. Sales will show credit balance. Sales return will show debit balance. So return inwards, debit side 530. Return outward means purchase return. Return outward means purchase return. It will be credit side. It should be taken on the credit side. So return outward, credit side 980. Revenue. Revenue is an income, sales. Revenue are the sales. Credit column 65,570. Then trade payable, liability, credit side. Trade receivable, asset, debit side. Wages, expenses, debit side. That's it. We have taken all the items, whatever is given in the problem, we have taken on the correct side. We have taken on the Correct side. Now take the total on the debit column. It is 94,690. Credit column also 94,690. No need of suspense account. Suspense account will arise whenever there is a difference in the two balances. Debit balance and credit balance, debit total and credit total. If there is difference, then suspense account. Here there is no difference. The total of debit column and total of credit column are same. Tallied. Now next problem, problem number 8. Prepare a trial balance from the following. Again, specifically all the accounts are given, balances are given, amounts are given. Now we have to decide which item should be taken in debit column and which item should be taken in the credit column. Now first item, trial balance at 31st December 2017, accounts debit credit. First item, administration. Administration means expenses, debit side. So administration debit column 12,457. Next, bank. For the bank, it is given minus 22,000. In the problem, you can see bank minus 22,000. That means it's a liability, it's an overdraft. That bank minus 22,000 is an overdraft. If it is, if minus is not written, then we will treat bank balance as an asset. If nothing is given, we assume bank balance is an asset, debit side. But here, bank minus 22,000. That means it is an overdraft. Bank overdraft. It's a liability. Credit side. So here I have taken bank 22,000 credit column. Right? Next, bank loan. It's a liability. Bank loan is a liability. So credit column. Credit column 15,000. Building. Building is an asset. It will show debit balance. So building, debit side 1,20,000. Capital. It's the equity. Always credit balance. So capital, credit column 1,05,000 or 105,000. Then carriage inward. It's an expense. Debits column. Carriage inward. Cash. Cash is an asset. So debit column 12,446. Drawings. Always debit balance. Electricity. It's an expense. Debit column. Fuel is an expense. Debit column. Insurance is an expense. Debit column. Inventories on 1st January 2017. Here in the problem, inventories at 31st December 2017 and inventories at 1st January 2017. Both inventories are given, opening inventory as well as closing inventory. But remember the point, when we make the trial balance, we take into account only opening inventory. The closing inventory should not be taken in the trial balance. So in this problem, inventories at 31st December 2017, 8,000. This we are not taking. We are not taking inventory. Opening inventory on 1st January 2017, 17,345. That will take. So inventory 17,345. Opening inventory only we should take. Next, motor vehicle is an asset. Debit column. Motor vehicle, asset. Next, purchase return, credit column. Purchases will show debit, purchase return will show credit. So purchase return, credit column 5527. Purchases, always debit, 1,62,559. Rent is an expense, debit. Then sales return will show debit balance. Sales credit balance, sales return, debit balance. So sales return, debit side. Then sales revenue, credit column, always. Trade payable is a liability, credit side. Trade receivable is an asset, debit side. Wages is an expense, debit side. Over all the items which are given in the problem, I have taken in the respective columns, debit column and credit column. Now see the total separately. Take the total of debit column, you will get 5,15,626. Take the total of the credit column, you will get again 5,15,626. That means trial balance is tallied. There is no difference in the total of debit and total of credit. No need of any suspense account. Automatically it is tallied. The only thing, you should not commit the mistake by taking the amount in the wrong side. You must remember which item should be taken in debit column and which item to be taken in credit column. Little bit of practice is required. With full concentration, if you listen my lecture, if you watch the theory video, definitely you will get 100% command on this topic of trial balance. So far I have completed 8 problems. Explanation of 8 problems I have given on this trial balance. Hope you understood, you got the complete command on this topic of trial balance. Inshallah, we will continue the next problem in the next video.